Hello, everybody. We're here Sunday night, one more time, ready for Jon Ferrian Live. We're here at episode number 177. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? 177 episodes. We are now beyond 3 years, nonstop, every week. A new show, a new guest. And I got to tell you, every once in a while we get some amazing, amazing guests. Every weekend, obviously. But once in a while, we get one that's just super special, and this is one of those days. So we got Julianne Chapman from She Shreds Mountain Adventures, and I'm excited to have her on tonight. We got some great, great content to share with you guys. Speaking of sharing, right now is the time for all of you to get on here. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hi in the comments. Mr. Kevin Carell has just dropped in a hi, John. Appreciate that, sir. Let us know where you're all watching from. And while you're doing that, also share, share, share. The way we get this content out, the way we save lives, the way we share information, the way we train and we educate people is this is a marriage, right? We are all in this together. I create the content with the guest. We add value to you in your lives. You all share it out. Share it with people that may not normally see it. By them sharing it out, we get more exposure, more content, more attention on the show, and this snowball effect continues to happen. And just like tonight, as we talk through it, you're going to hear us talk about it. The snowball effect of what all of you do as people who watch the show and share it out is amazing. And to reward all of you for that amazing sharing and that content sharing that you guys have, we're giving away some more great, great prizes. So one more time, we've got Fly Racing as our sponsor for tonight's show. And guess what? I don't know if this looks familiar to you guys or not, but the mid-layer jacket from Fly Racing, this is awesome, guys. Midwinter, when it's cold out, I wear this under my sled gear. Throughout the season, I wear it as like a lightweight jacket. Even into the spring and fall, sometimes I ride in this thing when it gets warm enough. So this is an amazing jacket, $80 value for you guys. Color choice of black, red, or gray. Just share and win, guys. Share and win. So let me kill the music, and we'll wrap this up here. And we're going to get Julianne Chapman on here in. Wait, I was going to go to Julianne Chapman, but I got to remind these people one more time. Drop it in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from right now, and don't forget to share. Share to your personal pages. Share to your Snowball Club pages, and share out to any just public pages that are out there that you think will add some value to what we're doing. So now, without any further ado, Julianne, make sure you come off mute. You're ready for this? 3, 2, and 1. How are you doing, Julianne?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing amazing. But
Awesome.
you know that already. So because it is summer here and it's hot, I'm actually going to take off my mid-layer jacket because it is so warm. And in the house, I don't need it right now. And I'm going to be sweating to death before we're done with this show if I keep that sucker on. So
Funny because I'm up here in Canada with my toque on.
yeah, and I'd ask you what the temperature is up there, but you would give it to me in Celsius, and I would have
Celsius.
to think about it, right?
Yeah, totally. It's cold. It's kind of
It's
rainy
cold.
today, and yeah, it's
It's
kind of
above freezing,
cold.
though, right?
It is just above freezing. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. And hey, I'm gonna throw in a She Shreds little package on that giveaway that you're giving with that mid
Wow,
layer. I'll
awesome.
throw in a She Shreds toque, some stickers, and a bunch of fun stuff.
That is amazing. You guys heard it here right now, and so we'll actually. You okay if we give it away to two different people? We'll give away
Yeah,
my prize pack and your prize pack, and we'll share the wealth and spread it out a little bit. So you
sounds
guys got
good.
that right. Right now, if you haven't done it already, share out the show, and you'll get in to win both the Fly Racing mid-layer jacket and the She Shreds. What do you call it? A packet?
A little package.
Little gift package from Canada,
Yeah,
the Great White North, right?
that's right.
Awesome, awesome. So Julianne, like I always try to let everybody know like how I get connected with my guests, and I think to me this is a fun little story, and I hope it's not embarrassing for you. But I have
Uh-oh.
been starstruck with Julianne for a long time. Like I've been following her career and watching what she's doing, and every once in a while I reach out to these like big name guests, and I'm like, oh hey, I got this little show over here called Jon Ferrian Live, and maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but we're trying to do some good in the community. Would you like to come on sometime? And we tried to coordinate it, and I hit you at the wrong place at the wrong time, and ultimately I think both of us lost track of time, right?
Totally. I had a kid, and man, when you have kids, you lose track of time
Oh
big
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. Full-time mom, she
Yeah.
shreds, instructor, coordinator, business owner, entrepreneur. You got a busy schedule. But I
Totally.
gotta say, like I reached out to you, but then I was even more excited when you
I,
reached out to me. I was like, oh
yeah.
my God, Julianne Chapman reached out to Jon Ferrian and reached out to me, and I'm so excited to have her on the show. Like I think my response was, hell yes, yeah, let's
Yeah.
get you on.
Totally. I had a little bit of free time and I was like, you know what? I gotta hit up that John guy one more time. I kind
Yeah.
of turned him down the first time.
Yeah,
Let's get
yeah,
her
yeah.
done.
And just watching what's been happening in the comments as you've been sharing the show preview and me and stuff too, you have a very loyal fan base of just amazing people who've either just follow you on social media, some have been to your clinic. I know folks that I know personally here in Washington who've been up to your clinics and they just adore you and what you do up there. And so I'm so stoked to have you on.
Thanks, man. I love my fans and I love my followers. They're all, the whole snowmobile community, man. It's all good, real people.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let's, for those who maybe don't know you intimately and thoroughly through all the things they already know, let's get to know you just a little bit. So just give us some background, kind of quote unquote where you grew up, family, whatever you want to share. It's all, open floor. And if you have
Totally.
horses or pets or something, I think I see in your following that you've got horses, right? So
Horses,
don't leave them
yeah.
out. Let's make sure they're part of the family. So
I'll let you know about my whole family. Yeah, no, grew up East Coast Canada, Quebec, where they call la tuque a hat in French, and left as soon as I graduated college. I knew that I needed to be in the mountains. I was a professional snowboarder at the time, and well, an aspiring professional, and all my sponsors were telling me, you need to move out west and start snowboarding out west. And so that's what I did. I moved to Whistler when I was like fresh 19 as soon as I graduated college. And I got it big time into snowboarding with the competitions. And then all of a sudden, my sponsors are telling me, hey, you need to get a sled to start filming backcountry segments. And
amazing.
that's when my snowmobile career kind of started. And there wasn't very many women involved in that industry back then. And it would take
What
three
year
days
roughly are we talking about? How long ago?
I want to say like 15 years ago
Okay,
ish,
okay.
16 years ago, where, snowmobiles would take 3 days to get into a zone where it takes like an hour to get into
Oh, I
the
know,
same
right?
zone now. Like it's insane. So, yeah, that's how I kind of got into snowmobiling. And it was a humbling experience, let me tell you. I'm sure it's humbling for everybody who first starts, obviously.
Yeah.
But I started with a crew of all the sled neck guys,
Oh,
Jeff
nice.
Kyle, Dan Treadway, Kyle Johansson, like all the Canadian boys, anyways.
Yeah.
And it was, they helped me, but they didn't really help me. Like when I was stuck, they'd make sure I was
Ah!
make sure I was safe, but they were like, "You need to get this out on your own. So we'll
Yeah.
see you soon."
Yeah, you're
And
just one of the guys or one of the riders, right?
totally. And so they'd be buzzing around me and I'd just be digging and digging. And so it was a bit of a, yeah, as I said, humbling experience. And so that's kind of how I got it to start She Shreds. I was like, people need to learn in a little bit more of an easier, more supportive fashion. And so that's how I started She Shreds. And it's boomed. It was all of a sudden, it was just girls, and then all of a sudden, I'm doing guys. I'm teaching. I'm training search and rescue in BC
Amazing.
now in
Yeah.
certain areas. I'm teaching avalanche courses, that kind of stuff. And I have a family with 3 horses. The horses has been something that's been growing every couple of years. All of a sudden, I got myself another horse and
Awesome.
couple dogs and an amazing partner that's super supportive. And yeah, no, life is good. This is me.
We might call that as live large. I don't know if you've noticed, but some of
Yeah,
my gear it all says live large. I don't think I've taken the time to explain to you, and I think I'll explain to the audience who's there. But what does live large mean and what it's all about? You ready for that?
please do because I like it so far.
Because you were asking me questions about all of the things I do around avalanche safety and education and everything, but we didn't talk about live large specifically. And what you just described and kind of what you do for your community is you are living large, and this is what I define living large as. And it literally is covered on this shirt. It says, "Live life to the fullest, make the most of every day, and make a difference to others," right? And it's
Yeah.
just kind of become kind of the core of who I am and what I'm about, and both personally, professionally. Believe it or not, like I think some of them followers told me, like I in my most recent job interview that I started at Microsoft back 6 months ago, I actually used Live Large as part of my talk track of who I am and my brand and what I stand for. And I believe truly it helped me actually land the job at
Get the
one of
job.
the world's
Yeah.
largest corporations, right? And
That's
so it
good.
really resonates with everybody when it's presented in the right way.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why people, it's meaningful for them to buy a hat that says live large or a shirt, because it's not just about living life to the fullest, but it's really about all the things that we do around the hashtag live large that ties everything together. And like I tell everybody, my guests, like you're part of the live large family now once you've been on, right? So
Love it. I love it.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So
Mm.
15 years you said you've been doing this, and there's been a huge transition, as you've already alluded to, but I want you to go deeper into that, right? I got a note here that you and I talked about. It says, the development of women in the sport over the last 15 years and kind of how you've
Oh,
seen that evolve, how I'll say it for you, is how you personally have influenced and guided the way that transition has happened. You've been part of that for sure. But
yeah.
just give us kind of your background on what you feel that transition has been like
Yeah.
and kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of it, I guess. So,
Totally. So yeah, 15 years ago, let's go back. So I remember this for instance, how there's not very many girls that used to be in the industry, and so I was in the backcountry with this guy Dan Treadway, who is
mhm.
an amazing sled neck rider back in the day, and he had long blonde hair, and he I think it was Oakley that sponsored his outerwear, and it had some pink on it at one point. Anyways, I remember being somewhere, Valley Bottom, and somebody was watching this. It was Dan Treadway, but he didn't know it was him, with the long blonde locks flipping out of the helmet. And the guy was like, "Oh my goodness, look at this girl ride!" And I'm like, "This is a dude. This isn't a girl."
Ah,
So yeah, no, there wasn't very many girls in the backcountry back then, and so
it's awesome.
was pretty lucky that I started back then, because it was all of a sudden my foot was in the industry really easily, because there wasn't much competition, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
so the whole industry has definitely developed. The fact that there is so many more women getting into the sport now is so rad to see. Like, you'll be in the backcountry and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that chick rips," that's it's just kind of a normal accepted
yeah,
thing now. And so yeah, the development has definitely come a long way. Obviously, the sleds have for
yeah.
sure as well. As far as like getting into the industry now at this point and trying to be a professional rider, there's definitely a lot more competition these days. There's
Hmm.
tons more amazing riders. Um, what do companies look for?
Yeah,
They want somebody who's like, truthful, and who's obviously a good rider. But if the people that stick around year after year,
yeah,
that are here for 10, 15 years, they're the people who, live large, as you said, that
yeah.
are good people that have a meaning in the industry, and that is just a good rider too, I guess. That's
Yeah.
definitely
Well, that's awesome. And so, going deeper into the transition for women in 15 years, it's, you think about, you know, what you've witnessed, but at what point did you get into starting? Can you kind of talk to us about what point in that 15 years did you start doing, organized clinics, rides, however it started? And then
yeah.
just, give us some good detail about the evolution of your business and kind of where it started,
Mm.
what you saw the needs were, how you evolved your training then to, accommodate everything that you're seeing the transition. So what year was it that you started officially She Shreds, or what is
So that
now
was
She Shreds?
10 years ago,
Okay.
officially, like, on in the books with my corporation business number, and and permits are all different,
Oh
within
yeah.
Canada and the States. And so as far as permitting goes, I never had what's called a tenure. I work under sub tenures, so I have agreements with companies that already have tenures, but I have recently put in a tenure application in two different areas in BC. And so it's like you grow. You
Yeah.
start fresh. You learn how the ropes go. You learn how the permitting goes, the insurance, all that stuff, and then you definitely you stick around for a while because you're legit,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so as far as how the business came about, I
Well,
only did.
think about this for a minute. Like, how did you identify that there was a need for ladies' rides and clinics? Like, what stuck out to you? Like, there's a moment in time where you're like,
Yeah,
wow, there's something that really is needed here, and I think I can fulfill that, right? So take us back to
totally.
that. I guarantee you it was a day on a mountain somewhere with
It
somebody.
was
So talk
with
to us
Dave
about that day.
Nerona.
Dave
it
Nerona, my buddy.
was
Oh, I
on the
love
mountain
Dave.
with Dave Nerona and Steph Leroy Schwartz,
Okay,
actually. And
awesome.
Dave was like, there's quite a few girls getting into it, and you and Steph are really good at what you do, and you should probably teach people. And Steph and I were like, yeah, we should. We should definitely try it. So Steph Leroy Schwartz and I, we did our first trial clinic, I guess, if you want to call it,
Perfect.
together. And there was another Brandy Floyd from Washington.
Awesome. I
She
know
was part
Blandy.
of that as
Yep,
well
I
back
know
in the
Brandy.
day. And And yeah, so we had our one trial. We had 20 girls sign up with like something insane on the waiting list. I think there was like 17 girls on the
Wow.
cancellation list or something like that. So right away, that was our ding, ding, ding. There's a niche. And so we kind of did a couple more clinics together. And then Steph Schwartz and I kind of went our own ways. She started to work with Snow Divas
Got it.
and doing clinics there. I started She Shreds right away. And then Steph started her own stuff now, Mountain Lab camps, and so
Nice.
we've kind of been in the industry quite a bit. And then I hired Nadine Overwater too for a clinic back in the day to be a coach,
Yeah.
and she started her La Nina Sled camp. So the evolution is definitely there's the niche is there, the people are there,
Yeah.
and it's working.
Yeah, and I think, here's just my 2 cents on what I've witnessed in the industry is like there's so many, there's different levels of riders. You have your beginners, your intermediates, your advanced riders, right? And typically somebody who thinks of themselves as an advanced rider, frankly, probably already thinks they're too good to go to a clinic anyway. Like, so that's probably not your customer base. Like I've been
Yeah,
watching this for years, right? And so you're probably not getting too many riders that are like, yep, I'm already an expert. I'm here so you can teach me more, right? That just doesn't
yeah,
happen, right?
no.
Your intermediate riders probably think they're good, but know they have something to learn, but are probably hard to train, right? Because they have bad habits already and all that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
no?
male specifically,
Yeah,
intermediate
yeah, yeah.
girls, there's still lots to learn.
Awesome, awesome. But then you have
Yeah,
the beginners, and this is kind of where I'm going with this, is you have the beginners and or what you saw in the original time was this, underrepresented group of women who saw a sport that probably at the beginning they didn't feel like was their sport, but they loved it so much they wanted to be part of it. And you saw that opportunity and you just unlocked it, right? Because
totally.
whether I'm here in a snow, like we do snowmobile club rides and we do beginner, intermediate, and advanced rides, and that's what I've witnessed here too. Is like those beginner rides are the ones where people just flock to them, or the people who really want to learn something, where they've got their mind clear of the fact that they are really good, or they're already this or already that, and they just open
Totally.
up their hearts and their minds to learning, and then it's just amazing to watch their transition, right? And just this week as we were talking, you were like, referencing my wife and her progression
Yeah,
that we've had, and like it's just amazing to watch that happen. And it's taken her quite a few years to get there, and now she's just on this roll where like this last year or two she's just opened herself up to going to a riding clinic this last year. That helped,
awesome.
and then just getting more and more time on the snow and all of that coming together. But yeah, that niche that you have that you've unlocked is it's a very underserved and underrepresented, especially back then.
Totally.
And then you've evolved it over time. And so let's talk about how it's evolved from what it originally was to kind of the different stages, because you now have different versions of different clinics and rides and all those type of things. So
Yeah, totally. So there's always the beginner, intermediate, and advanced groups in the clinics.
yeah,
And the beginners, there's many of them that are anxious, to the point where they're not even eating breakfast before coming out,
yeah,
and that's affecting their performance during the day. And then the intermediate riders, they know what it's like. They know, it's intense, but they know how to be prepared a little bit more. And then I do get a couple of advanced riders. Usually, the advanced riders want to learn more like jumps and drops and really technical tree riding, that
yeah,
kind of stuff. And so, the way that it's evolved as far as the clinic, like schedule or I guess presentation, I I was a little bit all over the place. I won't lie, right at the
yeah.
start. I didn't know what I was doing, but after 10 years, you tend to nail what you're doing pretty darn good. And so now I've got a whole, skill level progression ladder, I call it. And so
Awesome.
I teach only certain things in the beginner clinic, certain things in the intermediate clinic, and then certain things in the advanced clinic. And everybody learns at a different pace, right? So I like to keep my groups pretty small because of that, because sometimes I'll have a group of beginners that start in the morning, and then one or two girls really just it clicks. They're fit. They have the stamina, and it just clicks. And so by the end of the day, sometimes in the beginner group, I'll have to separate two and give different
Nice.
exercises to two, and so yeah, no, it's yeah, I've learned to manage my groups a lot better now. Before it was a little bit of a, part of my language, a shit show.
Yeah, it's how we do it. Like we experience, we learn, and all that. And so, I'm just going to give you a kind of a little mini commercial break here for you. Is the idea that think about the rest of the progression of the clinics and what you want to talk about. And in the meantime, I'm going to just give you some idea of like the folks who are watching right now. We've got folks here from North Dakota. We've got from Santa Barbara, California. We've got people here from Massachusetts on the East Coast. My mother and father from Minnesota are watching tonight. So hi, mom and
Nice.
dad. Tina Shields is a name you might recognize and know. Yep, she's here
Yeah.
from Washington. She's watching tonight. We've got Jess
Awesome.
Stoll from Colorado, if I remember right, and Kevin Carell is from California. Who else we got here? And then I've got a couple of just personal notes here. I'm hoping this means something to you. I know the people, but I don't know the story behind this name. So,
Okay.
from Andrea Marigold Wiley, I think is how you say their name, and Chris
Yeah.
Wiley. It's a husband and wife out of Iowa. Do you know
Yep.
them? Okay.
Yep.
So they wanted to
Totally.
make sure that you knew that Izzy says hi from Iowa. So,
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
who's
So
Izzy? I got to know who Izzy is.
it's their daughter.
Their daughter. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I went to Iowa years ago, and Brett Rasmussen and I did a
Got it.
presentation in a big hall, and basically this family and another woman, Tammy, and her
Yeah.
husband took me under their arms, and just we had a great time while I was there.
Yeah.
And Tammy's the one that brought me down, and
That's
it was
awesome.
through the Iowa State Snowmobile Club, and
Yep.
so it was
Yeah,
great.
Chris
Yeah,
at one time was the state president, and I know
yeah,
Andrea's still on the board with them, and she's planning, I think it's ISMA in the next year or two. The ISMA, International Snowball Congress, I think is what's going on, and she's helping coordinate and plan that for when it's in their area. And so
awesome.
my apologies for not remembering their daughter's name, because I've actually met Izzy now that they say that, but I knew Chris and Andrea,
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
all good. Nice.
We've got some folks here from Wyoming and Wisconsin. Who
We're
else?
my Canadians.
Idaho. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see any Canadians here yet, but
That's okay.
they're
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 still
they're
out.
probably watching silently. Maybe they're being too busy being
Totally.
Canadian nice, and they don't want to interrupt the show. Maybe is what it is. So, isn't that what's going on there? That's awesome. Even Skinner Bill's joined us here from Washington.
Oh,
So,
Skinner, nice,
yep.
awesome.
Yep, yep. And my friend Craig Olhauser, you may or may not know from Ride Rasmussen. He's working towards getting on with those guys out of North Dakota, is where he lives. So a bunch of people here sharing some love with you, and so thank you all for dropping in the comments and sharing this
Thanks.
out. We also have Ryan Tarrant here from Northern Ontario, so there's one of your Canadian friends.
Awesome.
Awesome,
It's
awesome.
late in Ontario right now. It's like 7, 8, 9. It's like 10:30 in
Yeah,
Ontario now.
Massachusetts, same thing. It gets to be like 3 hours after our time, and so God bless
Yeah.
them for watching late. So. All
Yeah.
right, so back to the evolution. So you started with the ladies' clinics. There's been some evolution of the growth of it and stuff too, and then you saw additional needs, and you kept layering in different types of courses and classes. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So yeah, no, and men started to reach out to me and being like, "Hey, I know my macho dude friends are not really as supportive. I need to learn how to get out there." So, I got these awesome dudes reaching out, and then as the evolution kind of progressed, especially now during COVID, I got lots of couples.
That's awesome.
So, families are traveling together, and
Yeah.
yeah, tons of couples, and I love the couples.
Yeah.
It's like I'm saving their marriage sometimes too.
I love it. Well, as we've all learned the hard way some days, is it's sometimes the hardest people to learn from is our spouses, right? And so
Yep.
when somebody is trying to teach somebody how to ride, the same thing you say to somebody else may not land the way you intend it with your spouse. Let me just say, I may or
Totally.
may not know that from experience. I've been very delicate and fragile around that all those years, but I know
Good
that
on you.
the tipping point was when she went to a clinic with Ride Rasmussen style, got to work with a gentleman over there for a little while, one on one
Yeah,
for a bit, and it gave her a lot of extra confidence, which I know is one of the bullets that you and I are going to talk about tonight as far as that empowerment and confidence that you instill in the riders. But we'll work that
totally.
in over time here. So.
Yeah, no problem.
So the couples rides.
Yeah, couples rides. They're super fun. It's cool to see a different side of their working relationship and that kind of stuff, and there's things that I have to remind the dude, the girls love the positive reinforcement throughout the day,
Yep.
and it's all about picking the right terrain and not showing off in front of them. It's about dulling it down and almost breaking it down step by step for the wife, and
Yeah.
but sometimes it just doesn't work too. There's certain couples that out there that just don't work together on the
On the mountain.
so, and I'll be straight up. I'll be like, at the end of the clinic, I'm like, I don't think you guys should go out
You
sledding
guys should
together.
you guys shouldn't ride together. Like it's not
Yeah,
healthy for
no,
your marriage. Yeah.
no,
So do
yeah,
you
don't worry.
typically like divide the couples into two groups, the men and the women, or just into different groups at all, or do you like keep them together in one clinic?
There are certain clinics that I do that. So the Valentine's Day clinic, I mean, pre-COVID, they would come in, we'd stay in a house. I'd rent a big house and we'd have dinners
Yeah.
together, and it was super awesome. And then during those clinics, we'd separate the dudes and the girls and bring them together at, the actual Valentine's Day or one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
days we'd ride all together kind of thing. But from then, I just do private clinics for couples, just because it's easier to group manage when it's just one couple or maybe two couples if they know each other and stuff like that. It's hard to do two different. It's hard to, especially if there's just one coach.
Yeah.
It's hard to. The guys are always usually typically more advanced than the women, and so it's hard to keep them stoked and safe at the same time, because I can't be just like, yeah, you two go rip off while I work with your wives in case they like start an avalanche or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm responsible for the whole group, so that's how I manage it. I just keep it small and do privates with the couples.
Awesome. Awesome. So what
Yeah.
other types of courses and classes are you covering?
Yeah, so I'm also doing avalanche courses. So
Okay.
in Canada, it's called Avalanche Skills Training Level 1. So I think it's like ARI Level 1 for
Yep.
you guys down there.
Yep.
I teach those. I just got accepted to go and do my operations Level 2, which will allow me to teach the Level 2, like the basic Level 2, the Avalanche Skill Training Level
Nice.
2. And so, as you know, avalanche training is a constant thing
Oh
throughout your
yeah.
life. I've been doing it, yeah, for 15 years, but I'm still getting my certifications higher and higher and higher. And so,
That's amazing.
yeah, I teach avalanche courses. I also do occupational training. So like just training search and rescue, forestry people that need, any sort of occupation that needs to take a snowmobile into the backcountry. I teach them as well. And yeah, the stuff that I teach, I mean, yeah, for sure, I'm teaching riding, but I'm also teaching mountain safety and outdoor survival in a winter setting. So
Let's talk
for
about that, because that's I think, from my point of view, is one of the things that makes your program maybe a little more unique than others, is that, is it all of these different courses that you incorporate kind of the mountain living, the mountain skills or mountain survival skills into your writing classes? Like,
Yep, every clinic is the same. So
okay.
we'll start off. We used to meet in person the morning of, but with COVID, it's changed. It's more online now. So I
Okay.
do a meeting on Zoom. In that meeting, we cover a mapping lesson. So I teach you how to read a map. So we go into Google Earth. I teach
Yeah.
you what an avalanche chute looks like. I teach you, what a valley looks like, what a rock formation looks like. I teach you all these things in a map, and then so the next day when we go into the zone, I'll be like, remember last night there was this big rock formation with the avalanche chute after? Well, we're about to get to that point, so you can put two and two together. So they learn how to
Yeah.
read mountainous terrain on maps, but also apply it and a sense of direction while they're in the mountains, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Um,
So, I mean, just to give
yeah,
you some contrast comparison, my experience has been that the area level one training that we went through, the avalanche training, covers some of that kind of content, the map reading and the terrain recognition stuff on, maps. But the actual writing clinics that I've witnessed, I'm not sure how much of that is covered. I obviously there's all kinds of them around the country, but I don't, yeah, things I've heard from feedback from folks who've been to different ones, that's not ever come up in conversation. So that's an
totally.
interesting position to take. So I love that. So.
Yeah, that, and then I also do a little component on proper gear and outdoor survival. So what the rider should be riding and having on them while they're in the
Yeah.
backcountry. I do. What else do I do? I do like uh, I do a maintenance check too on the snowmobile and
That's
teaching
awesome.
them, how to change a belt,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and how to clutch start if their electric start poops the bed or their
Yeah.
pull starter comes out. I teach them lots of stuff to not only riding. So if I was having to teach riding all day long, they would be so exhausted by
Oh,
the
I
end of the
bet.
day. So
Yeah.
I try to, break it up a little bit. Okay, you're tired right now. Have a break. Have a little snack, and while you're doing that, I'll teach you how to change a belt, or I'll teach you,
That's amazing.
how you
Yeah.
should adjust your snowmobile and shocks and
That's
stuff like
actually
that.
really impressive, Julianne. I gotta say, because I asked you this question earlier in our pre-show discussion. I said I'm going to ask you this question. Like, if I have a fistful of cash and I'm a customer who wants to go to a riding clinic, what makes She Shreds Mountain Adventures different or unique that would make me want to throw my cash down on your table versus somebody else's, right? And the
Totally.
things we're talking about right now, I think, are those things that you're standing apart. It's like, and I agree with you. Like, again, through our snowmobile clubs, you and I chat about this. It's like, I'll teach a friend how to ride, and even my wife I've done, and literally, like, you spend somebody who's trying to learn how to get their sled up on edge and how to do different things. It's exhausting, right, for them, because they don't have that technique yet and that skill set. And so in many
Totally.
cases, they're burned out in like 30 minutes or less sometimes.
Yeah.
And that downtime of taking the time to teach them basic skills, and if your sled breaks down or you have a blown belt or whatever
Yeah.
it is, like
Yeah.
that's genius actually, and I think that's really meaningful content to add to your classes. So kudos to you.
Thank you. You definitely get your bang for the buck with the She Shreds clinics. I
Yeah,
try to pack you with the most amount of information for you to go home and
yeah,
be somewhat capable to take it on yourself and
yeah,
be able to get out of the backcountry in case
yeah.
something happens or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. All
Yeah.
right.
No.
So any other like clinics, since I think you've covered all the different ones that we've done there.
Yeah.
Anything else there before I give you the next question? I think there's another thing I want to kind of transition to.
No, I think yeah, I could
Okay.
pretty much explain She Shreds and
Okay.
yeah, the
And then
history and
let's
stuff.
deep dive into this bullet, which was, how to instill and empower confidence. So empowerment and confidence, right? And,
Yeah.
just elaborate. Are we talking specifically with women, with all writers? Just give us some context first, and then let's go into kind of what your techniques are to instill those things.
Totally. It's for women and men.
Hmm.
I'll touch a couple points on women specific because we are obviously a little different, and I am a female, so I'd like to throw it out
Noted.
there that
Everybody, in case you hadn't noticed, female, male over here. There's a difference. We're on two sides of the screen. She has a different perspective than me, which I appreciate that diverse mindset, that diverse insight. So, there. Is that official enough for you?
yeah, definitely
Awesome.
official. And we, we us girls think a little bit more than men, and yeah,
Thank
so
God. Otherwise, us men wouldn't be here. So I'll just tell you,
right.
like, if it wasn't for my wife keeping me under control all day, like, I'm going to tell you a true story, Julianne, just to give you an
Yeah,
example, right?
yeah,
So we're
yeah.
going riding yesterday. We did the snow park cleanup in the morning. And here I am in my big Ram diesel truck with two sleds on the sled deck, my Marlon sled deck back there. And I see the road, starting to melt out, and there's patches of drifts and stuff. And I look at it and I'm like, well, there's tracks there. And like, kind of looks like people tried to get through there. Like,
Whoa, whoa, whoa! When you
I
say tracks, is that truck
truck
tracks
tracks, yeah,
or sled tracks?
truck
Okay,
tracks. Like it looked
okay,
like
okay, yeah,
like we had gone through some sections already where people had made
yeah,
it through and we'd made it,
yeah,
but then
yeah.
it looked like it was getting a little sketchy, and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure we can make that. Like, let me just hammer down 4-wheel drive, traction control off, boom, stuck.
yes,
But
but
in my head, I knew I had a tow strap and buddies behind me that could
yeah,
pull me out, so I knew I was safe. But I'm just like, boom, second
but
time, stuck again.
did you? Yes,
I did it twice.
but did you get the furthest track in? Is
I
the
did.
question?
Yes, yes, yes. I made it all the farthest in, other than the ATV who went all the way in. But like it
Oh
was
yeah,
a side by side. But
that
I had the furthest
doesn't
tracks
count.
in with my truck, as far as I
That's
know.
hilarious.
And
Yeah.
so my point was that Edith was like, "Yeah, maybe we should just park back there." I would have spent another hour trying to push through that next 20 feet of snow, and
to
then we would have
avoid
lost an hour riding. And in the meantime,
to
we just unloaded.
yeah, I was gonna say to avoid one last dirt patch on the sled.
Oh yeah, no, literally after we got our sleds loaded up, I could have made it maybe another 100 feet down the road, and we would have been done anyway. So,
That's awesome.
so
The voice of
men,
reason.
women, a little smarter than us. So let's just go with that. So,
Oh, totally. So yeah, no, back to the instilling confidence.
yes,
So yeah, there'll be a couple of points that I'll mention that are women specific, and then I'll even end it with a husband's guide to taking your
oh,
wifey out.
I'm gonna take notes. Literally, like I got notepad right here.
There you go. So yeah, no, a bit of yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I learned it was humbling. The way basically what I learned is always set your expectations low when you're going out snowmobiling because especially when you're first starting,
Mhm.
because everything is just so mind blowing at that point. That if you set your expectations low, you'll be stoked with whatever happens
Yeah,
during the day. And that's not just with snowmobiling. That's with like, your husband, your wife,
yeah.
and what they make for dinner and et cetera, et cetera. Set your expectations low. You'll be stoked in the end. And so,
That
yeah.
falls into the
And
category. Here, let me give you a new set of words to say the same thing. Like, and it's very close, but it may not be the same. But just being grateful for what you have, right? Like, just
yeah,
be grateful, right? Like, there's dinner on the table. It doesn't have to be filet mignon tonight, right? Like, be grateful for your spouse for what they offer you today. Yes, we're all going to get better together. guess what? We're going to go out and we're going to ride as far as we can that's safe, but we don't have to hit the top of the mountain. Let's be grateful for the time we get to spend on the mountain, right? So,
Or get stuck on the road.
yep,
Just be grateful that you only got to,
that's
you know,
stuck.
2 kilometers.
So
Yeah.
add to that story on the way down the mountain, there was a
Yeah.
Subaru stuck in the exact same spot I was stuck earlier.
He followed your
They
tracks.
did, they did. And I'm on the way down and I stopped and I looked at those two guys, two young guys, and I looked over and I said, so on a scale of 1 to 100, how bleep do you feel right now? How effed do you feel right now? And they looked at me and go like they didn't know whether they should take me serious or not. And I was just joking with them. And turns
Yeah,
out I pulled them out and they went down
for
and
sure.
bought us beer and appetizers for dinner that night. So it worked
Oh,
out, made new
nice.
friends.
That's awesome. I
All
love
right.
it.
So be grateful for everything. It's powering. I
Yeah,
keep interrupting. I'll shut up now. Sorry.
don't worry about it. The stuff you say is awesome. It makes me laugh. So yeah, no, it's as we both mentioned, set your expectations low, and you'll be stoked. So riding with the people that make you comfortable. So that's
Oh,
another little bullet point.
I
You
love
don't
that
want to
one.
go out with somebody who's constantly, yes, you do need to scare yourself a little bit once in a while because that's the only way to get better on a snowmobile, but you don't need to be shitting your pants every time you go out
Oh, for
because
sure. Yeah.
then your confidence is not there.
Yeah.
You're not building on it. You're basically scared right off the bat. The next little bullet point I'm going to say is a ride in terrain that makes you comfortable, because snowmobiling is supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
just like hanging out with your buddies. Everything is supposed to be fun, and so if you're not having fun and you're not comfortable in the terrain that you're learning in, or at that point, you do need to tone it down, but at the same time, if you can handle it mentally and physically, then
Yep.
sure, keep going. But if
Yep.
you're a sensitive person, whether male or female, and you're scared or you're not comfortable, this is when injuries happen,
Oh yeah.
that kind of stuff. And so it's snowmobiling is a big mental game, as
Oh
it's
yeah.
a
More,
physical.
as much, if not more than physical. Like it is. It absolutely is.
Exactly. You got to stay on it. You got to constantly be thinking, if I continue further, can I get out of here? If I go down here, can I get out? That kind of stuff. And so, yeah, just ride in terrain that you're comfortable at first. And when you start to feel comfortable on your snowmobile and you
Yeah.
start to feel in control, then sure, start going in more technical
Yeah.
terrain.
Well, I'll give you a specific example of that, right? I experienced that when I was on my clinic with Ride Rasmussen style, and one of the guys who's guiding was here watching tonight, so this is perfect for him
Yeah,
to hear, right?
perfect.
And he'll know this story. So I was there with him and another, I won't say who the other one was, two different pro riders, right? They brought me to the top of this ridge, and we're in an area that's unfamiliar to me. They both know this area; they've ridden there before, and they're like, "Yeah, just drop over this ridge right down there." And
Oh,
I get off, and I'd been riding them, and they knew my skill level, and they felt
yeah,
I could do it. And I looked at it, and I'm like, well, from here I can't see the bottom, and I don't know what's down there, and I don't know what the way out is, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I walked 30, 40 feet closer to the edge, still couldn't see the bottom, and so it rolled off pretty steep. But the snow was pretty soft. I probably could have slowed my descent. I was measuring in my head, like, can I get back out of there? Avalanche conditions. And I chose not to go. And the two guides that were with me both said, Jon, it's actually not that often that people tell us no. And I respect that, actually. I
that's
appreciate
awesome.
it, right? And so the
Yeah,
funny part is later we went around and ended up at the bottom of that same hill where we were at the top earlier. And I looked at it,
yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, I could have done that. After I
yeah,
saw it, I'm like, now that I know what's
totally.
down here and I can get out,
Yeah.
like now I'm good. Let's go do it. And so I
Well,
literally
they
within 20 minutes or 15 minutes later, I was ripping up and down that hill. It's like,
Oh,
it was
that's
awesome.
that's awesome. Yeah. Usually, guides or coaches, they won't set you up for failure. They might play a little, mental twist on you, be like, yeah, that's the only way out, but really they know another way out
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Nate said
We
like, "Oh
don't
yeah,
want
there's a way out," but I'm just like, I don't know. I just in my head, I'm like, I'm the safety guy. Like everybody
yeah,
knows me as the safety guy, so I'm not
yeah,
real super adverse or whatever. It's like I try to avoid risk if I can most of the time, but I like to have fun too. So,
yeah. That's good to have that naturally instilled in you, especially in the mountains. So
yep,
that's good on you. Yeah.
awesome, awesome.
Okay, next bullet. Time expectation to get good. So for example, I
Love
get a
that.
lot of beginners being like, holy moly, this is taking, a long time for me to understand even just powder carving. Like, when am I going to be able to actually ride this snowmobile? It all depends how much time you put into it. So
Amen.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you're riding 4 times a week, Sure, in a season, maybe 2 seasons, you'll be ripping, no problem. But
Yep.
if you're the type of person that works, Monday to Friday, you got a family, you got, tons of other things going on, and you're only able to get out twice a month, then
Yeah,
it's going to take years before you can get better
for
and,
sure.
and good at what you do. So, yeah, that time expectation, make sure you have that down point
Yeah.
and set it low, like your expectations.
Yep, that's awesome. I love that one.
Yeah,
That's perfect. And
totally.
I completely, my experience tells me that that's spot on. So,
Yeah. Okay, next thing. Women think a lot more than men.
ooh, this is where
It's
I'm going to start taking notes right here. Like everybody, all you men who are watching right now, Kyle P.
yeah.
Franklin, Aaron McCarthy, Roger Aaron, Craig Skinner, you guys get your notepads out. This is going to be good. Get some gold coming our way.
Totally. So we mentally definitely get hung up on things a lot more than men. Men, sure, you'll have like physical challenges. You're like, oh man, I'm tired. I don't know if I got this in me to get up here or whatever. Girls is going to be like, okay, whoa. I need to think about, A, B, C, and D, not just A right now. I need to know how to get out of here. I need to know what to do at this point of them. So, being able to go with the right people
Yeah,
and keeping it mellow at first, just for you to kind of get the handle of snowmobiling, is all about expanding that mental capacity. So if you're keeping it mellow, you're staying within your mental capacity. If you're a beginner and getting thrown into gnarly stuff, your mind is blown and you've reached your
yeah,
limit already. And so, yeah, set yourself up for success, depending where you're at with your ability level, and just make sure that it's good to scare yourself once in a while. As I said earlier, it's the only way to learn how to get better at snowmobiling, but don't mentally blow your mind
yeah,
too much, because then it'll be too much. It's like you've reached the max.
yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Next one, get out of your comfort level once in a while. I said,
Yeah,
good to scare yourself, but obviously don't do it every single time you go out riding and all day long. Once a day, twice a day, sure, but
yep,
not all day long and every time, because then it's just not even
yeah.
that fun, at that point.
That's exactly what we did literally yesterday with Edith, right? And so
Yep.
that hill climb, you actually referenced it earlier when we
I
were talking,
saw
that
that
hill
video.
climb, and I
Yeah.
was there, and I just am like, we had been to that spot before, and there's a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit easier route that goes up and down there. And I had had her down there a couple years ago, and this year we hadn't been down there at all because that's an area that, like, yeah, unless it's the right conditions for both avalanches and snow, it's a challenging area to get in and out of, right? And so
Yeah.
I brought her down there, and I figured like, okay, this is as safe as it's going to get anytime soon. And I've gotten to be enough of a rider where like, okay, if I follow her up at a distance where I'm safe from her, if her sled gets away from her and starts zinging towards the trees, I can still zoom down and kind of block the
Um,
sled and save it, type of thing, right? And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, totally.
and so she's just a little bit at a time, did little circles first, and then
Yep.
worked her way up. And the irony is, she actually tried to go fast first. The first few times she tried to go over the top,
Yeah.
she in her world was going too fast, and she didn't feel
Yeah.
like she had the control,
Control.
and so she kept like arcing out and turning out back onto the trail, which is perfect. No,
Hmm.
no danger. And
Yeah. At
then
least she's not flipping.
yeah, exactly. And then she finally slowed in her way, she decided for herself. She just slowed down. And as
Yeah.
she slowed down, we still had good spring snow, so it had good traction. She
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
able to then keep the front end light, and she was able to comfortably like get back and forth on edge. And you watch the
Yeah.
video, it was just amazing to watch her do it. So
Killed it.
yeah,
I bet you she probably looked at that hill at one point and was like, nope, I don't even think I
never,
could ever do that. And then
ever.
the fact that she was able to do that yesterday,
Yep.
that's when things start to really click and
Oh,
you
for
really
sure.
start to enjoy snowmobiling. I bet you now she's like, she's got that bug,
Oh
she just wants
yeah.
to get back
And
out there and
that bug
go.
hit her about a year ago, and we've been embracing it all year long. She's been out almost all season long, every day with me. One
Oh,
short trip to Wyoming, I had 4 days I rode without there this year. Other than that, she's ridden with me every single day. It's been amazing. So,
I love it. Okay, I got two more bullet points for
all
the
right,
instilled confidence. Eat a good amount of energy in the
okay,
morning and throughout the day. Obviously, I get these clinics sometimes that women are it's more women than men that
yeah,
arrive so anxious that they haven't had breakfast, and then all of a sudden they've got zero energy by like 10 a.m.
exactly.
And
Yep,
so lining yourself up for success with good quality food throughout the day as well is you have to be in the mountains for mountain riding. And then last one, accept the hiccups and remember that everybody started somewhere. Getting stuck. There's some women, especially they men too. They're just like, oh, I'm stuck all the time. It's normal. We all went through that. Like
yep,
we all dug our little hearts out to when we first started. And we still, like, I still do, because we're constantly pushing ourselves out of our
Yeah.
limits,
Yeah.
right? So you're getting stuck when that happens. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just be accepting of that stuff. Take out your tea, drink your tea, get the music going on your phone, and enjoy the scenery, because you're going to be there for a while,
Yeah.
and you better enjoy
Yep. Yep.
it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then
So
I was just going to say there's physical challenges too. That was more instilling confidence, but there's, staying fit and eating well. Your endurance starts to go up as you're more and more fit, and your mental health also stays pretty sane when you're constantly exerting yourself, or even exercising off mountain and stuff like that.
yep.
Like, you're setting yourself up for success. And then another thing about physical challenges for men and women with snowmobiling, you get the snowmobile probably maybe secondhand, if you're not buying new every year, or second, whatever, 2 years, and you got to set up the snowmobile for your body. Like, if you're getting a secondhand sled that was set up, let's say, for a 250-pound dude, and a girl's buying it that's 125 pounds,
Yeah.
like, you got some setup to do. The handlebars, the shock setup, the throttle body housing. If they have small hands, you can change that to fit better in your hands. The brake lever, like Skins makes an amazing brake lever that's adjustable. Yeah.
We use
And
on them on all of our sleds, and Edith actually loves it. So.
yeah, and it's heated too. And
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna show all the followers right now something really messed up.
What's
So
that?
I messed up my fingers.
Oh
Uh,
no.
oh yeah, so this is my brake finger.
Yeah.
That's a snowmobile accident. I didn't have my finger on the brake, and I hit something with my ski and my knuckle, so I can't even bend it.
Oh
Like,
my
that's
gosh.
my knuckles right here. And so a heated brake lever is great because I got really bad circulation in
Oh
that
wow.
finger.
Okay.
And then this one doesn't go straight, and that's a horseback riding accident. So yeah, now everybody knows I got messed up fingers.
That's okay. That's okay. That's
But
awesome.
yeah, the Skins heated brake lever is amazing for
What it
that,
means
because
is that you've got a wealth of experience, and like I could talk to you about my broken back, and I'm actually that exact same brake finger that you're talking about. Like, I was in McCall this year, and I did one of those, like, kind of a re-entry, and I landed on my side, and the sled kind of got, and I jacked my finger real hard sideways, and probably almost did what you did, which, I didn't break it, but ever since then, I haven't told anybody this, including my wife, but like, it's been bothering me ever since then, and so I've been kind of like being careful with it this year.
yeah.
But it's really easy to jack up your fingers when you're
Yeah,
dealing with brakes and stuff.
the little ligaments that are
Yeah,
holding the knuckles in place and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And
yeah,
so, yeah. Yeah, back to sled setup for physical
yeah,
challenges. Ski width. So all these new sleds coming out these days are pretty awesome, and they're
yeah.
very narrow, especially the mountain sleds. But some people don't have the budget to buy brand new sleds, and so they're stuck buying like 7 to 10-year-old sleds. And the width of the skis were pretty wide back then, and so narrowing that up helps you to be able to get the sled on edge a little bit easier. That kind of stuff. And then seat height. So for
Oh
short,
yeah,
super short people, a stock seat is pretty thick. I mean, it's comfy to sit on, but how much are you sitting on it?
yeah,
Not very much in a day. So you can either shave it down, you can cut it in half and get it reupholstered, or you
yeah.
can buy aftermarket seats. Skins has a bunch of awesome seats, and a
What do
bunch
you
of
what do
companies
you
out there.
use on yours? Like, do you have a brand that you
I
use on yours?
I used to use Skins. I'm pretty tall. I'm 5'7", so I don't change my seat anymore. But I used to have a Skins low profile. It was
Yeah.
I believe it was one of Dan Adams's.
So are you on Polaris now? And have you always been
Yeah,
on Polaris? Have you been
not
always?
always.
You were on
Nope,
Skidoo for a
not
while,
always.
right?
I was on Ski for quite a long while. Yeah, when I first started, I've been on Polaris for 5 years now, and
Okay.
it was the best change I've ever done.
Yeah.
We can go into detail that in a bit if you'd like to hear.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'll just share
but
with
yeah,
you to reinforce what you just said. The seat height is a big deal because on the Skidoos now, the stock X package seat is what was on my wife's sled. I took the expert package seat that was on my Skidoo. I put it on her sled, which is way low. And
yeah.
then I actually ended up with an aftermarket seat called Seat Concepts. I don't know. I'm assuming they make sled for Polaris too. So if you don't already have a seat sponsor,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Seat Concepts is the bomb. They make a nice
Cool.
low, tight seat. And then the
Yeah.
foam density they use is actually super comfortable. So it's
Ooh.
as comfortable or more comfortable if you have to sit on it, but it's low and
Cool.
out of the way. So
Oh, that's good to
No,
know.
no crap. In spite of the fact that they've sponsored me this year, like it's a
Yeah.
seat I would buy hands down. It's been amazing so far.
Good
So
to know. I remember I used to be on Boss seats
yeah, they
from
were
back
great
in the
back in the day.
day.
Yeah,
They were great. I don't know whatever happened to that company. Anyways, seats. That's
yeah,
another good thing if you're a short person, because when you're jumping from side to side, you're not hooking up with your feet on
yeah,
the seat. Shock setup. That's huge.
yep,
If you're a tiny, lightweight person, then you're going to want to have your shocks a little softer. It's easier to get the sled on edge. You're not going to bottom out, but if you're
yep.
heavier, obviously you want them a little stiffer. And yeah, the shocks, you can go into so much detail.
And how
I'm
about
not.
handlebar heights? Should they be way up here like this, or should they be lower? Tanya
No,
Brooks
so,
says drop
yeah,
your handlebar heights. So
yeah, totally. Handlebar height is a huge one. I actually did a video, a pro tip on that. It's personal preference for sure, but I always think that it should sit between your pelvic bone and your belly button, just because that's the height where you have the most strength in your shoulders. If it's anything higher, you lose all your strength in your shoulders, and it's way harder to steer.
yeah,
The width of the handlebars too is huge. If you have super short little T-Rex arms, you're not going to go for you're not going to go for a 42-inch width where you're
yeah,
like spread out because you got no strength in your arms.
yep.
That kind of stuff. But you got to be careful how narrow you cut them, because you won't be able to fit all your clusters back on if you go too short.
Good
So
point.
like
Yeah,
your brake lever, your throttle, and especially if there's a bend in
yeah,
or a rise in the handlebar,
yeah,
like you got to be real careful how much you cut off. So yeah, there's so much stuff you can do to the snowmobile to help you with your physical challenges, men or women.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how
And
about?
then
Oh, go ahead. Is there more? Go ahead.
no, there's nothing more but that husband's guide to teaching the wifey. There's a couple bullets under there, but you can say what
Well,
you want to
well, I
say
was
there.
just going to ask you if you want to go deeper into your time on Polaris now and what you're enjoying about Polaris, what's working well for you, and like the chaos
Totally.
versus RMK. But if that's more
Yeah.
appropriate to cover at the end, we can do that at the end if you want to cover that next section first. So
Okay, let's cover the next session and we'll talk about that, because that's definitely something I'd love
yeah,
to chat about.
sure.
So yeah, husband's guide to teaching your wifey. Always choose mellow terrain when you're first starting.
Yeah.
Obviously, bring her in technical terrain if she can handle it. But yeah, if you want to save your marriage, keep it mellow. And I'm talking low angles. No crazy trees or holes or waterfalls or ditches, stuff
So
for
so
the
cliff drops no more than 50 feet is what I'm hearing.
unless you want a divorce, go for it. Positive reinforcement all day, boys, all
Amen.
day. You got to tell her she's awesome, she's killing it, and to not give up. And obviously that she's pretty, because we always love to hear that we're pretty.
Pretty awesome, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
watch my videos that you're in my chain of me describing my wife riding up the hill, and you'll hear all that positive reinforcement in there. So if the boys want to take notes, come watch some of my videos. It's been awesome.
Right. And make sure she hears it too when she
Oh,
comes
she always
down.
goes down and watches the videos afterwards, and not
Okay.
to mention then the high fives come out and everything else, and hugs
Yes.
and everything
Oh, that's
else.
awesome. Because then that just gives them more confidence to keep
Oh
going.
yeah,
Yeah. Do not give your wife your 850 turbo with 7-inch risers, if she's small. The husbands usually sometimes always have two sleds, and I'll just give my wife my other sled. Set it up for her if you
yeah.
want her to enjoy her time and actually love the sport. If you want her to just hate it, then sure, give her your
Julianne,
850
I'm
turbo.
just gonna say here for a minute that like I'm getting a little bit of a big head over here because all these things you're talking about are things I've been doing for a long time with Edith. Is like I always gave her the best sled. We set it up for her, and all those kind of things. So, all
You
right,
did your research. Good
I'll, I'll,
job.
I'll
Good
I'll sit over
job.
here and fan myself because I've been doing such an amazing job.
Someone's going to have a healthy marriage, and that's going to be
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I've been married 25 years this September, and more madly in love
Yeah.
today than ever before. So hopefully things are working out. So
Love it. Love it. Dull down your riding, boys. I know you want to show off in front of your wife to, show her how sick the wheelie is
I
or how
suck at
cool the
that part.
climb
I
you
suck at
do.
that part. Like I'm just gonna tell you, I
Perfect.
suck at that part. I can't
Yeah,
help
no,
myself. Like I want to do wheelies, I want to climb goofy things,
uh,
but yeah, I hear
but
you.
when you're trying, I mean, do it.
No, no,
Sure,
no, no.
go
I'm
for
just saying it's good advice. I'm writing notes, so don't take
it.
that as I was challenging you by no means. So
There's a time there's a time and place for it, that's for sure. You just be like, "Hey babe, check this out. I'm going to impress you." And then she's like, "Okay, yeah, cool. I'll watch." But when you're trying to teach and trying to, show her some stuff, dull it down. Try to exaggerate on your movements. So, a 200-pound dude, all they have to do is put a little bit of weight in their right foot. But if you actually like move your butt over to the right when you're trying to get the sled on edge, she can actually see that movement. She can't see the slight weight in the
Yeah.
right foot. So exaggerating your movements and
Good
then
call.
explaining it to her too, like I'm actually counter steering here. I'm turning the opposite direction. And so yeah, breaking it down step by step, exaggerating your movements, and lots of visual demos. Like, yeah, explaining, but lots of visual demos so they can
Yeah.
actually see it. And then last but not least, when she's tired, it's
Oh,
time to
it's time.
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amen.
because
Yeah.
yeah, shit goes south real quick if you keep pushing when they're tired.
Yep. Nope. It's when it's their time, it's their time. So
Yeah, totally. And that's it. That's all.
awesome, awesome. Well, let's dive a
It's
little deeper
really
into your love for Polaris snowmobiles and what it is you love about them.
totally. So when I switched over 5 years ago, I was at a point where, and don't get me wrong, Skidoo was great for the 10 years that I was on them.
Yeah.
It brought me to where I was, but I didn't feel like I was able to learn technical riding on my Skidoo
Okay.
in the trees. And that was a goal of mine 5 years ago is I want to be able to rip these
Yeah.
sick. I remember going to a climb team ride and yeah, I was the only one without a turbo, but also I was the only one on a Skidoo. Everybody else was on a Polaris. Dan and Chris and everybody's Matt, and they were just ripping these sick lines. And I remember thinking, man, if I jump on a Polaris, I think I'll be able to do this. And they were like, yeah, you will. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so here I am. The next year after that, I got offered an amazing offer from Polaris, and
Good for you.
yeah, I said thank you to Skidoo, and I went to Polaris. And since then, my technical riding has expanded tenfold.
Awesome.
Like I'm able to ride technical tree riding now. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that Polaris, as me as a rider, I was able to get more confidence with my riding and bring me to my next level.
Awesome.
And I'm so glad.
Curious, based on the timing of it, did you get any time on the new Gen 4 Skidoos, or were you still running the XM Skidoos? Did you get Gen
Yeah,
4?
I did get Gen 4. I got the
Okay.
last year of the Gen 4, or the first year,
First year of
sorry,
the
I
Gen
should say,
4. Yep.
of the Gen 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And so yeah,
awesome.
no, yeah, I think I never ended up doing a delete kit on my Team Ocean.
Got it.
Maybe I should have tried that. But anyways, I'm so
Bottom line
beyond
is you
stoked.
got something that works. And here's the thing is like I all the time get to ride different people's sleds all the time and the Polarises are amazing. Like I mean there's certain I'll be honest with you, there's certain parts of riding a Polaris that I like better than my Skidoo, but there's also
Mhm.
the many things I like about my Skidoo that I like better than the Polaris. And so
But
it's a balance back
question
and forth. So
is it a turbo thing or is it an 850 thing or what is it the throttle response or what
I'll
do
be
you
just to be super transparent with you. Like hopefully we don't
Yeah.
make any manufacturers mad, but for me it's been the ongoing long consistency of reliability. Like
Yeah.
just the sled every day, putting gas and oil in it and getting me home every single time without a hiccup. Like I've had such good luck with Skidoos for so many years, and sadly, and even I even owned a Arctic Cat Alpha One, the 2019. I had that for 2 seasons,
Mhm.
and I've ridden enough Polarises around me too, like over the different years that I feel like Polaris today makes as good of a sled as they've ever made before. And I'll be honest with you, I was like this close from snow checking a new Polaris
Oh.
boost turbo this year, but
Mhm.
the fact that the only thing that saved me from buying one was probably the fact that they sold out in less than 24
I
hours
was
and there
gonna
wasn't
say
any available. I
there
was
wasn't any. Yeah.
procrastinating. I probably would have been a 72-hour kind of guy, but they were already
Yeah.
sold out, so it made my decision easy. But
Just out.
I
Yeah.
did get to
Totally.
test drive at Mount Baker during a demo at the Mount Baker shootout. I did get to ride the non-turbo version of the
Yeah.
165
Yeah.
Chaos Matrix, and it was an amazing
Yeah.
machine. Super easy to ride, was amazing. But that handlebar steering, if you're used to one versus the Skidoo, it just takes time
Mm,
to get used to them. But
the
amazing
steering
sled.
column.
Yep.
Yeah, the angles are definitely quite different between the steering columns, eh?
Did you get to ride the new Matrix then, or no? This year,
I
like a little
did.
bit? Yeah,
Yeah, totally. I'll be on a turbo. I'll also have a Chaos non turbo, naturally aspirated as
yeah.
well. It's there as I there's so many different days that you're like, okay, today I'm riding technical trees. It's super deep. I need this
You're spoiled
tool
like
to
I
do
am. I've got
this.
a
Yeah.
turbo 165 and I've got a non-turbo 154 2.5 inch, and it's like depending on the snow and the day. Like this time of year in spring snow, I ride my naturally aspirated one with the short track and the short lugs. Works fabulous, and like the turbo just stays in the garage until the deep snow comes out again. So
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
cool.
it's work.
Well, what have we
Yeah.
got left to talk about? There was one thing actually took a note on earlier that I'd love to get your take on because I think this is something that when we all talk about sledding and skills and all this stuff that we don't talk about enough, and I am passionate about this subject. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
Ready?
Ready. What
S
is it?
T U C K. Stuck.
Stuff.
Let's talk about as an instructor when you're teaching the ladies. Like to me, I'll kind of tee this up for you. Like to me, there's different parts of being stuck, and I think the biggest part and the worst part is the mental game that we talked about, right?
Hmm.
Like I'll give you my own story, right? Like as a mountain rider coming from the Midwest originally, taking 1 or 2 weeks a year out in the mountains. The first few years I was mountain riding, I hated getting stuck. I was fearful of getting stuck. It prevented me from trying things that I should have been trying, and I was just petrified of it, like
Hmm.
all the time.
Normal.
And I sat there and I thought about it and I analyzed it and I finally got to the point where I figured out what the heck was going on. And you know what it was?
What was it?
It was gloves.
You didn't have a good grip?
I
Your
didn't
hands were
know.
cold.
I didn't. Well, they were getting cold because every time I got stuck, I would have to dig my sled out.
Ah,
My hands were
yeah.
getting wet and
Wet.
cold, and then the rest of my day was miserable. So what I
Mm-hmm.
discovered was when I got better gloves and or I brought multiple pairs of gloves to keep my hands dry and warm throughout the entire day,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden my confidence level of getting stuck wasn't nearly what it used to be. Like I used to get mad at my friends when they got stuck because I'd have to go out and go help them out and they were getting my gloves wet. And I was like yelling at them sometimes, right? When I was getting the early days, right? And so
Yeah.
it is a mental game, right? And so
Oh yeah.
I'd love to hear from your perspective on the idea of, how do you get people through that mindset of don't be afraid to get stuck, embrace it as part of the
Hmm.
experience. And then let's go into a little bit of the techniques of, how I've got things that I share with people. I'm curious if they match up is,
Yeah.
how to get stuck in a way that you can easily get unstuck, right? Like part of it is setting yourself up to get out easy.
Yeah.
Like don't just trench it to the running boards, right? Like that's the first step, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to hear your side of this, right? And kind of
Okay.
we'll just talk through it. I'm super curious.
So first things first is gear management,
Oh
and this
yeah,
is something that I teach in my clinics. And so going back to the gloves and the goggles, those are two things that you got to really be on it with getting stuck a ton. So goggles and helmets, I just tell them to take it off right away,
yeah,
just before the fogging starts and the condensation in the goggles and stuff starts. So that's rule number one. Rule number two, if you have an easy access glove that is not too wet at that point, I use those as my stuck gloves. And make sure that your hands are dry when you put them in back into your good gloves,
yeah,
because if you're putting moisture back in, especially if they're Gore-Tex gloves, you're all of a sudden putting moisture into the glove, and that's your hands are going to be wet.
yeah.
So gear management number one. Number two, enjoy your stuck. So
That's a good one.
taking out your music or your tea and have a little sip and just whoosha, calm down, don't get frustrated. Sometimes it's okay to let out, a big beep.
Beep. Family friendly
Sometimes it's
show.
okay to let one of those out, and then you're like, okay, calm down. And then look at it as at the big picture. If you're alone and all your other buddies are super stuck too because it's a super deep day, then obviously you're gonna have to take your shovel out probably and just shovel out
Embrace it. Yep.
make it as a flat or take out the trench or whatever that you
Yep.
just did. But if you got an easy access friend that's coming, just set it up before they get there. So if you're the type of person that gets stuck and just stands around and just like waits for a friend, your friends are going to
You won't have
stop
any
coming to
friends very
help you.
long.
Exactly. Yeah, hard on setting up for your buddy to just come and give you a quick steeple. So yeah, taking out the snow from the running boards
Yep.
and just digging all the snow out from and when I say digging, I mean like just stepping down with your
That's a
feet.
big one, right? And
Huge.
have you had a chance to ride much like farther to the east, like where the low snow is lighter and fluffier versus because you and I ride in like heavier, wetter snow, and the
Yeah,
stomping stuff works amazing. Like you can stomp
totally.
stuff down. But there's
Yeah.
times where I've ridden in like Wyoming and Colorado and Utah where like there ain't no stepping down that sugar powder stuff, right? So
No, yeah.
different techniques
So
depending where you're at. Yeah,
East Coast too, like in Quebec, East Coast Canada, it's like this bottomless powder. And so
yeah,
this
it's
is why all
quicksand.
these
Yeah,
places they always have turbos is because you actually need a turbo to get around in those areas because there's no base. Your
yeah.
snowmobile's just like, yeah. And so yeah, the sugar snow sucks even more. I remember leaving from Chris Brandt's place being like, I am never going back to Colorado.
Yeah,
Yeah,
12,000 feet of elevation and champagne
right.
powder, right? Yeah.
You feel like a fat kid at the top.
Can't breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's getting stuck. It's just one of those things. And you know, back in the day, yeah, as you said, we're super scared when we're learning. We don't want to get stuck because our energy levels are kind of short too
Yeah.
at that point, and it's tiring. But then you get to that point that's, you know, you're able to get a little further before you get stuck, and then you're like, okay, now I'm starting to get further. I'm stuck. It's okay. Now at our point where we are is like, I want to get stuck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
go
you know
in
you're
the
pushing hard.
gnarly. Yeah, I am on the gnarliest stuff, and I want to get stuck. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's funny the whole
It's like a
mental
badge
evolution.
of honor, right? And it's like, yeah. And it's like once you learn the techniques of how to get unstuck pretty easily, then it's not even intimidating anymore. It's more like, oh yeah, that was funny, haha, let's get out, and you're out
Right.
in 2 minutes. And then there's a game we play amongst our friends where it's like, if I can get out by myself without help, it's not technically a stuck. Like we play that game, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there's
yeah.
times where my buddies will literally, as soon as they see me even temporarily stop and they think I'm stuck, they'll rush over there and just tag my sled and put their hand out and say, "I helped, you're stuck."
Take a
So
picture and yeah,
exactly,
totally make fun of you later.
awesome, awesome.
I also yeah, like in these clinics that I teach, it's the throttle is huge
Oh
when
yeah,
you're trying to get unstuck.
yep.
Like that, so I show some girls, mostly girls, because well, I show the beginner boys too this, but yeah, when your snowmobile is kind of flat and you can just pin it out of there after you stomp down a bunch of snow and you don't need to do any lifting, it's
Yeah,
like, oh
it's
yeah,
amazing.
this is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Julianne, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Let's do bad news first.
Well, the bad news is the show's almost over.
I figured that. That's okay.
The good news
We're
is
giving away prizes?
we have blasted away 1 hour and 5 minutes of our time, and it felt like 5 minutes.
Totally.
Did you have a good
So
time? I had a good time.
yeah.
All right.
That's what happens when you put two people under the same roof that have good conversation
I
and
know, right?
stories.
Well, and hopefully we'll get to share it with thousands of people if they continue to do what we asked them to do earlier, which is to share this out and get some amazing information out to some amazing people who want to hear it. Let's do that. And as a reminder, if you share this out, which you haven't already, do it now. You're in for a mid-layer jacket from Fly Racing. One person will win that, and a second person will win a She Shreds gift pack, we'll call it, right? Some goodies in there. And so everybody, we appreciate you here. So Julianne, final thoughts, final words. Do you have any like sponsors, anybody you want to say thank you to before we wrap this up? So
Yeah, no, totally. First and foremost, my sponsors and supporters are definitely my followers, I should say, are my number one thanks. Followers, you guys make this world. I love you. There's so many young girls, especially too, that
it's
just,
amazing.
yeah, it's so nice to see. But obviously, Polaris, Climb, Truck Boss, Dex, Skins, Dayco, Cheetah Factory Racing, Fox. Mammut, High Mark by Snowfalls, Sled Shed Cookers, Kootenai Kombucha, Mainjet Motorsports, C4 Designs, Wraps. Am I missing anyone? Yep. Backcountry Motorsports, Pit Viper,
There's always
Linsa.
somebody you will probably miss, and we'll just
Yeah,
profusely
totally.
apologize in advance if we did.
Yeah, I appreciate all the support, you guys.
Yep, yep, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, Julianne, for being on. I'm grateful to have you on the show finally.
Thanks,
And
John.
as I remind everybody, don't forget to live large, have an amazing night, and God bless you all. Have an awesome night.
Two. Peace.
Bye.